He knows the little horn now.
Did I see that?
That's
That was dancing.
No, this is the white guy wedding dance.
Yeah, you just gotta like turn
Just
them.
keep it
Turn them.
never like this, but right up in here.
Okay.
Hey.
Oh, like Hitch.
Yeah.
Just keep it right here.
Right there.
Right there.
That was a
So
good
funny.
reference.
That's where it's from.
I try.
Gosh, we love Rob. It is National Lookalike Day. Did you guys know that?
Oh, we do now.
If you didn't, well, that was the thing. Like, if you should have been watching Morning Blend
Yes.
from 5 to 7, because then you would have seen Rob Carlmark.
Oh my
You look
God.
like the second one. Just stand
James
here like
Vaughn?
this.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
that guy.
Yes.
Fun, my friend. I'm still trying to get him on FaceTime. So
You're not going to get him on that. That's a significant
They
downgrade.
FaceTime all the time. I watch them.
he watches, FaceTime. Since my friend, he used to be on The Amazing Race, the reality show. So
That
he
I
was-
didn't know.
That's why people would out in
I
the
knew.
streets say, "Oh, you look like that guy from Amazing Race," and it was James Vaughn, and you pulled up the picture.
That's
of him.
like
But I
saying,
think
hey,
you're way more
James,
handsome.
You
Yes.
remind me of Steve Buscemi. He's just not going to accept that.
Yeah, and he's like every
No,
time
there's
I
nothing
bring it up,
against that. It's just the likeness. He doesn't see that. He doesn't see it.
He doesn't see it. But oftentimes
We
people
see it.
don't
I'm
see.
not upgrading. It's just there's not a connection. He's
Yeah.
not seeing it, so that's okay.
I see it. You guys are blonde, blue eyes.
You know, whatever.
Yeah. Anywho, who do you look like? Who do you look? Have you ever gotten people to say, "Oh, you look like this person"?
Not a one.
Not a one.
Here,
Your family. Your family.
When you
look
said
out
this
loud.
morning-
My family all looks
You
alike.
all look alike.
I see
do.
your mom and dad.
look
I
alike.
met her mom and sorry. I'm like I met her mom and dad separately, and I saw her. Oh, girl, you look just like your daddy. Oh, girl, you look just like your mama.
She's a great hybrid.
Hey, Mama Daytia.
You know she's
I'm sure
watching.
she's watching today.
Dad
yeah.
watches later after he gets off of work.
Oh,
I'm
So he
okay with
just
it.
watched.
Hey, Papa Daytia.
yeah. Everyone always says when of Papa's, I look just like my dad. I sometimes don't see it. Oftentimes I don't see it. But how about you?
I look like my dad for my family, but I think the look-alike, what we talked about on Extra Shop this morning.
Shocking.
No.
I'm glad that you guys don't agree. These are my friends and they love me. But I'm going to be honest with y'all. They had met me post-glow up back then. I did not wear makeup. I did not wear makeup. Let's talk about that. People said I look just like Lil Bow Wow's big sister. But Lil Bow Wow.
Okay.
You look like you could be his big sister, but you look just like him now.
Yeah.
But no, she doesn't. Way more beautiful.
doesn't.
I appreciate that. Again,
Hold on. What are people saying in here? Are they?
I'm trying to look here.
So
Go ahead.
while we're trying to find out what you guys are saying, do me a favor and share this right along with me. There are a ton of us chimed in right now, and I just want to get that conversation out to as many people as possible.
Yes, everyone share. Okay, we're going to start at 8:17 on this Friday with the news about Stephon Clark's brother. So we know 25-year-old Stevante, we saw a lot of him post Stephon's death. He was very outspoken. You remember he's the gentleman who had walked into the city council meeting, stepped up, sat on the desk there, the round table of our mayor, and he was very outspoken in expressing, right? He was very expressive when it came to the death of his brother and really calling for change in this community and grieving publicly. And that was the big response from the Black Lives Matter community, from the community in general, saying, okay, everyone grieves in a different way. Stevante is grieving this way. So there was sort of a pass for a couple of days of like, let him do what he's doing, even though to some people it was very aggressive and inappropriate. Others were saying, you know, especially the Black community, like they have had enough. They're tired of all of this, right? So we know, just to back things up, Stephon Clark died in his grandmother's backyard. Sac police, the two officers who shot and killed him, thought that he was holding a gun, so that is why they fired 20 shots. 8 ended up hitting his body, and it turns out that he just had a cell phone. So he was an unarmed Black man, another one in our country who is dead. And so here we are, a month later. The protests have simmered down, if you will, but there are still protesting outside of the DA's office up until this week. And now Stevante has been arrested. He is out. There's no bail for him, so he is in jail, and he is set to be in court today at 1:30.
yeah, a lot of people are going to see what happens.
And
there.
a lot of people are
And
going
they'll
to see
be
what
there
happens
in person.
And I think a lot of people will be there in person too, because I think we have a viewer that asked the question that everybody wants the answer to. We've been talking about it. Morgan Russo, the officers are working again. To answer your question, yes, Morgan, those officers are back on the job. They are not on patrol, but they are back at work. And I think that, coupled with Stevante being in jail, we don't know a lot of the circumstances behind it, but I think a lot of people are like paying attention to this case again. A lot of people never really lost their focus on it, but a lot of people are like, we're back to this.
And I want to
Black
just say
matters.
why it is that he's arrested, because some
Sure.
people are asking
Yes.
that
Right.
question. So he's accused of making threats to commit a crime. He's also charged with calling 911 with the intent to annoy or harass. And again, he is not eligible for bail. And so some family members are coming out and saying, give him a pass. This is a guy who's grieving again publicly. And where are the resources for people in his community like him who don't have those resources very available? But when something tragic like this happens, there needs to be some sort of mental health grieving resources available to them. So I know people, though, are having the opinion of how much longer are we going to give Stevante the pass to act out in this way. We understand he needs the resources. We understand all of that. But at what point has it been too long and he needs to stop acting that way? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
Ask somebody to put a timetable on their grief, especially when what we've talked about this a lot. What we see in Stevante is this desire for love, and if he's getting that love through audience attention, and by audience I mean the public opinion, if he's getting his love from there, then maybe he's going to continue to act out until he's rectified something within him. This is going to take a long time.
Right.
And so with his family member stepping out and saying, hey, the community doesn't know how to deal with people with mental illness, suggesting that Stevante, this was a mental break of some sort, and he's grieving for his brother, you step back and you wonder, okay, one, is that an excuse? Because there are people that are going to say, hey, you're just defending your family member.
There are a lot of people who have had people die in their family. How is this different? And
Exactly. And then
acting
the
like
other side of this is there really is an issue dealing with mental health in the police system. And how do we deal with that going forward? So many conversations coming out of this one case.
Clark,
And I think law enforcement's not set up to treat
Exactly.
mental illness
They're not.
or breakdowns or anything like that. All they know is that they've got what they say are threats. We'll find out in court today,
Right.
maybe more about it. Threats and harassment and abuse of the 911 system. That's all they know. So what
They
they
have to
have
act
to
on
do,
that.
they have to pull that individual away from doing harm to others and also to himself. That's the other thing, too. A lot of times, if people are going through a mental episode, someone may be arrested, but that's the only means that they have to protect that individual from themselves, which seems like a crazy thing. Hey, they're just going through an episode. Why are they in jail now?
Right.
Maybe that's the only way for them to protect themselves if they're not able to take care of themselves. I know it sounds crazy, and we want this individual who's been through a lot already to be on the straight and narrow and to find help and to do better because of what happened to him and his family.
Definitely.
But being in jail, it's tough because is he getting treatment? Is he getting that?
And in a
Because
high-profile
that's not
case
set
like
up in jail.
this, how is the relationship in jail? We know once you get booked and you're in jail and you're with the community, and the community, even within jail, they have televisions. They know what's going on in the community.
Absolutely.
I'm interested to see if the violence will even, what kind of violence, if any, is going to happen inside the jail system.
He hasn't been violent, to our knowledge.
No, I'm saying with
he
other
made
people.
threats. But what I would say
within
here is
within the jail community, there is violence.
you were very kind in how you addressed it. People haven't been as kind in their comments.
Right.
Veronica here is saying, and not just about Stevante, but about the police officers as well. Veronica believes that the police officers should be in jail. And then there are people that believe Stevante should have been in jail weeks ago at this point for the scene that he showed at the city council meeting. And it's this, one, misunderstanding of the law. Nobody's going to go to jail for jumping up on top of that table. That's one. And number two, these police officers haven't been proven to do anything wrong. And so we're still waiting for all of that information. It's like people need to take a step back. Yes, we're all emotional human beings acting out of what touches our hearts, but at the same time, this is a family that is grieving, and these are police officers' families who are having to deal with them going through a traumatic experience.
And didn't Stevante even at one point tell the Black Lives Matter movement, who was out there protesting, and at some point there was some aggression out there in the streets, he had even called for, let's push back a little bit, let's not protest anymore. So my interest was, well, how does the Black Lives Matter community now feel about him, since he was saying stop the protests, and they're continuing to protest now? Is there some sort of miscommunication between them?
I think they made their stance pretty clear. He said stop protesting at the Golden One Center, or stop going to the Kings
freeways,
games, because like the Kings love us, and shutting down the freeways. The Kings love us. We support them. We don't want to block people there.
Yeah.
But Black Lives Matter, they've been working in this field. They've had this cause for a long time. It's like, this is how we get our message across. So I think there was a disconnect. So absolutely, from what the Clark family wanted and what Black Lives Matter
to do.
Fight for.
So Janice is saying, while I suggested that the cops are going through a traumatic situation, that also Stevante is too, and that they're all going through some sort of post-traumatic stress
Everyone
disorder.
involved is
Everyone
going
involved.
through a situation. Like, you got to think too, we haven't released the police officers involved names because they have received so many threats, so many death threats. So you can imagine that family that's dealing with the threats and do I feel safe? And then you have this other family who is grieving because they actually lost a loved one. And then our community, it's so sad that our community is in such turmoil. And then you can look at our comments here from viewers. Some people are pro, like, oh, we support the police. But it's sad that it's like we support the police, so then we have to be anti-Clark.
Right.
That's really sad.
That's what I saw pop up in the comments this morning, and I was shocked by this. That at least 70% of the comments that came through this morning before our 5 o'clock show were people that were
Supportive of the police.
Supportive of the police. And I thought in this particular market in general, there would be more anger, more disenchantment with
Why
the
did you
police.
think that?
Yeah, why did you think that?
Because of all the protests, because of the onslaught of comments that came through our Facebook live streams at the town hall or the, what's it called? The council meeting, at all of the protests. It wasn't always balanced. And today it was just so far on the other side that I was shocked.
Yeah, I think when you pay it, like what I've been paying attention in our social commentary, a lot of times going back since the beginning, it's been very divided. There has been there portions of our audience that are like, we support the cops. They are asking questions. What was Stephon Clark doing that night?
Yes.
So it's been divided since the beginning. But I think a lot of national media coverage will display like people are fighting back. And it's like, no, there was actually a fight within our city of two sides, two very separate sides of this issue. Some are pro-police, but it's just disheartening that if you're pro-police, you're anti-Clark family.
Okay, I want to just put up one cautionary tale.
Okay.
You got to be careful about something called, and you love this stuff, a false dichotomy.
Yes.
Okay, which is as we're presenting this issue as two sides. You're either for or against. One of the most famous ones, you're either with us or you're with the terrorists.
Yep.
You're either got my back or you got nobody's back. There are definitely two sides of the issue, which are well represented. But I'm curious to hear, especially in the comments, are we able to understand these from the police officer's point of view? I mean, if you go from their training for what we know and how they engage with the individual, a lot of that stuff will probably prove out that they were just going through the motions. Now, turning off the microphones and things like that is obviously something that's a little gray, and they've made some changes already.
All the videos
and then clearly we can understand unarmed man in his backyard at his grandma's house with no gun getting hit 8 times, getting shot 8 times. We clearly understand that that's too much. The punishment does not fit the alleged crime.
Right.
So I think we have to be careful as we're getting pulled into either it's you are with the cops or you're with Stephon Clark and his family. Is there some understanding of this whole thing is bad?
Yeah.
From understanding their point of view and understanding the police point of view, is there a middle ground? And I know what Walt's been saying with his social commentary, it's either this or that. I personally believe that there probably is more in the middle, but maybe we're just not hearing from those individuals.
If you are
forcing-
interested, let us hear
or
from
maybe
you.
I'm totally
Forcing
wrong.
people to pick a side.
I
Like,
think
are
it
you
is
there?
really difficult for people in the Black community to say at this point in time that there's a middle ground. Enough is enough. This has happened too many times. And until there is real change, yes, we have body cameras. Yes, we're going to have some new regulations, but I want a year to go without this happening. I want 2 years to go by. And then I want it to be absolutely normal to never hear about it again.
Right.
And I think
the goal.
so many people
Everybody
are waiting
wants
for that.
goal. Right.
But do they? I don't know that they do. You read some of these comments.
It's not just the
and there are
Stephon
angry
Clark
people.
issue.
Right.
There are so many issues in society, like immigration. People are so far split. And I'm hearing that there are people going more for the middle ground. That is how we get to a compromise. Because, you know, when people are so divided on an issue like this, we're never going to be able to come to a solution. So sometimes both sides are going to have to give a little bit to reach a middle ground so that we can come up with a solution. But if everybody's just like, no, my side, my way, or the highway, we are going to continue to have a problem.
And
It's
that's
like,
what I was
what
saying.
is that middle ground? Another dead body? That's,
This is why
I'm telling you.
Up here because everybody's just on one side or the other. No one can ever meet in the middle, or even think about trying to meet in the middle. even putting options on the table. Hey, maybe it's not like that. Maybe it could be like that.
I mean,
People just have a hard time doing that.
Mason, who's behind the camera right now, I know you guys are having a hard time hearing him. He's trying to say that we're never going to get to that point if we are so divisive. And I asked the question, if you have the Black Lives Matter, the entire black community, or most of the black community feeling a certain way, then there's that aggression towards, not even aggression, excuse me, but the police force, right? And there's this disconnect. Are we, as media, are we the middle ground? Are we supposed to be here to help facilitate those conversations, like maybe a town hall meeting? Are we supposed to be the ones bringing the two sides together? Because where do we stand? We're not supposed to be on either side.
I like that. I like that idea. I'm going to bring something to everyone's remembrance. And we were not alive when this was happening. You know, everyone thinks about Martin Luther King like he was this civil rights trailblazer. For most of Martin Luther King's life, he was very depressed because he tried to come to the middle ground. He came up at a time when people were, where there were the Black Power movement was coming, and they were thinking, you know, violence beget violence, so we fight back by fighting back, and he wanted to do peace. So a lot of people just in the black community or on the other side, they were so upset with Martin Luther King Jr. because he tried to find the common ground. And I think towards the end of his life, you know, he had lost a lot of support, lots of support, because he came to the middle ground. And it's unpopular, I think, but how do we get anywhere?
And years later, think about decades later, who he is today. With the monument, with everyone saying there's a day in his remembrance, but history writes itself, right? So we can look back now and go, at the time, it's tumultuous like it is right now. I would hope that in 50 years, 20 years, that we are at a place where we go, wow, remember back in 2018 when the black community really reached that point, and there was that divisiveness between law enforcement and the black community, and then something happened. There was a shift in culture. Maybe it's that next generation, student leaders. And that's what's happening. There's protesting. It's happening. We are living in that moment, hopefully, where change is going to come from this.
What I don't want is, you know, sometimes uncomfortability is the catalyst for change, but uncomfortability is uncomfortable. Sometimes it's painful. Martin Luther King died. He and so many others like him died for the cause. I don't want someone to have to die. Like, we've seen enough people dying to fix it. Can we just get to the solving of the problem? And it's not going to be something that happens overnight. I'm not thinking tomorrow there's going to be a quick fix. We need to start the ball rolling and hopefully make it through where no one else has to die behind this
Which
issue.
is why we keep bringing up the topic. And I know people, why are we talking about this again? Because we are still here.
They are not questioning why we're talking about it in the comments by any means. They're going in. So Maya Thompson, I want to call out what you're saying. She says, I'm so sick of non-black people being insensitive to black people. You people, in caps, find every reason to show some empathy for a school shooter. But a man who loses his brother needs to not experience any PTSD and not grieve. Then she says, if vandalism warrants death, I hope little Billy never gets caught. And if he does, you better not grieve. That reverberates. I think you can hear that across the country. And there is somebody in every single city, in every single part of this country that feels that way.
There is a Morgan Russo. I'm going to read hers out loud. Cops should not be able to fire unless they are 100% sure or getting fired at. A lot of people question that. And she goes on to talk a little bit about it. It was like, what would I do in that position? Thank God I don't have to be faced with those life or death positions. But also it's like, I am so tired of seeing the hashtags insert name, because it's becoming a hashtag every time you turn around.
Yeah, and we don't know what's going to come of the two officers. You know, they're back at work, not out in the field, but they're back at work. But our district attorney, you know, Schubert, says it's going to take some time, you know, for the Sac PD to do what they're going to do. And then it turns over to her at the DA office. And so she says, please be patient, because who knows, in the end, there's going to either be one or the other. The officers that were involved in this incident are either going to be prosecuted or they're not going to be prosecuted. So there's still, this conversation is going to continue until we reach that point. And then from that decision made, the conversation is going to start again.
But Kirsten brought this up before.
Go ahead.
You might actually.
No, girl, take it.
Okay.
You talk to it.
So, no, earlier in the 5 and the 6, you made a comment that, but isn't this a sign that maybe they're not going to press charges? She just posed the question. Is this a sign maybe they won't press charges against these police officers because they're already back at work?
No, let me clear up what I asked. I was like, what does that mean for the investigation? I didn't want to say if there was a sign.
No, and you didn't.
Yeah,
but like,
is this a sign, or like what does this mean for the investigation? They're still under investigation, but they're still doing their jobs. And on one hand, I can kind of see like, okay, you're still under investigation.
Yeah.
But you can still come to work. I don't
They were on
get it, but I
paid
don't
administrative leave. So at what point in the guidelines when you become a police officer does it say? Because Mason, you were explaining this as well, and I'm not so clear on the guidelines. But once an officer is involved in a shooting, isn't it they automatically go on leave? So at what point is a certain time frame that they come back? In this case, it's just protocol. They have not been
and it may just be their protocol.
And statistically speaking, they will not be charged based on his history. With other shootings before.
A lot of people
Mason
feel
again,
that way.
being
A lot
high-
of people
saying
feel that way.
statistically speaking, and Walt
Not
Gray
saying
has
it's
said
right or
this,
wrong.
he said it to the head of BLM, Black Lives Matter movement here in Sacramento. He said, what happens if statistically speaking, this turns out to be the police are okay, they go back to work, all goes back to normal, what happens then?
I'm going to put some information, some hardcore, concrete information behind that. Since the Joseph Mann shooting, that was another prominent black man shooting here in Sacramento, there have been no changes to the law. No changes to the law as far as law enforcement and how they deal with these situations. Those officers who were responsible for Joseph Mann's death were not charged.
Right.
No laws have changed. The DA has the case or the job of the responsibility, a responsibility none of us wants, to judge whether or not they broke a law. If the law does not change, since the last time we did this, how will you find them? How will you charge them
is this
with
any
anything?
different?
How is this going to be any different? Now, it's still up in the air. Who knows what will happen? We have a while to wait. But while you're waiting, I remember, again, hashtag this has happened before. I came from Louisiana where we had a shooting with Alton Sterling. And at the time the DA came out, did a press conference. It's going to take some time. And we remember thinking on the ground there in Louisiana, it was like, they're going to announce that there are no charges filed when there are not any protests, when people are not as angry
It's
about
all
it.
died down.
a year.
Like a year
And
later.
earlier this month, it came out, no charges will be filed for those two officers. Alton Sterling was a man who was shot on the ground, point blank range. Like it's this situation that keeps happening. But again, the last time a person was shot in Louisiana by cops,
Before that.
no laws had changed. So the law hasn't changed. We can only hold them accountable to the law as it stands right now. So to get change, we have to enact different laws if that's the change that we
And
want.
someone's proposed a law that it's basically a change in language, but it's important. It basically narrows the ability for officers to respond. They have to be much more certain that their life is threatened or that they're in danger before they're allowed deadly force response. So someone's it's been proposed. They're discussing it. So who knows if that's really what changes after all this. But the police chief did say that you have to have a reason. If you're going to hit mute on your body cam, you have to have a reason. So that is something concrete that's been made internally within the department. So there's one thing that's changed.